for the introduction, and thank you to Alderman Nielsen for giving a good introduction really to Cape Town and to the drought. So after a traumatic experience, I would recommend writing a book. It's a cathartic experience that is very, very painful. I used to, in my working life, always carry a notebook with me, and in whatever meeting, you just jot down who's at the meeting, the time, date, whatever, and then some notes. And in writing this book, I actually went through the painful experience of going through all my notes, MACO meetings by the thousands, and the mayor of the time abusing whoever was in the room and so on. But, you know, it was an experience of note. I had it published by Springer, so it's quite pricey, and I didn't really do a South African introduction, but I'm quite happy to share a PDF if anybody is interested. Right, so the nice thing about being involved in water is that I don't think that we would ever run out of work worldwide. It is forever in the headlines. Day zero used to be such a traumatic term, and I was hoping that people would stop associating Cape Town and South Africa with day zero, but it's a term that's now here to stay. Recently there were a couple of reports in the media. India, Chennai had a couple of day zeros. Mexico City was reported to be running out of water, and I highlighted that they said that day zero could arrive as early as June the 26th. But authorities have since sought to assure residents, blah, blah, blah. Mexico's mayor said in a recent press conference that reports of day zero were fake news. So water has become such a politicized space. And managing water resources and managing the water business are two critical components in making sure that people have water. Now, in Cape Town, we didn't so much focus on the management issues at the time because when the drought started, our non-revenue water was doing well, etc. But we had a severe drought. We had 3 years of exceptionally low rainfall. And, you know, when Alderman Nielsen was talking about the drought that was then broken, it will just take 2 years to really get Cape Town back in a drought. We don't have enough surface water storage to survive really for more than a couple of years without water, whereas in other cities around the world, they've got far longer, like in Sydney, I think it's 5 years of storage that they can live with. Here, we only have 2 years of storage. Of course, we hope that it will not just stop raining all of a sudden. But if you look at the long-term trend, it was a 1 in 590-year event statistically, and that was a reason why our dam levels were so low and we had this desperate drought. So what was our strategy? Our strategy was really to manage the dam levels and make water stay in dams for as long as possible, to manage our demand, and then we also had an augmentation program, but any engineer worth their salt will tell you that you can't build your way out of a drought. It is too late if you wait for a drought before you augment your water supply. Our water strategy, which was approved by council 2 days before I left the city, had a build program of, I think, an additional 300 million litres a day over a 10-year period. I know that due to COVID, projects were moved out, but I would caution the city to not move out projects by too long because the next round really could be just around the corner. The graphs there on the right show the seasonal variation in water usage of the city of Cape Town. You can see in summer it is very high, and in winter it drops by up to 500 million litres a day. And just how that seasonal variation was cut out in the drought is evident on the right-hand side of the graph. And then the bottom graph shows how slowly the demand has been increasing again, and I'm very encouraged to hear that the target is not to let the gross individual demand go beyond 190 litres a person a day. And then when Hugh was saying that growth in the city was 3%, our growth in demand used to be about 4% prior to the year 2000, when the Water Conservation and Demand Management Plan was instituted, and then it dropped to about 1%. So our water demand was very, very well managed for a long time. And that, a lot of people said, when the drought hit, made the elasticity of us reducing demand harder, but it was still achievable. I'm now working with the cities in Gauteng, and so far it's been an intractable problem, and I'm hoping that the trust that Alderman Nielsen referred to is going to be the silver bullet, building trust with the public sector. Okay, so the first one was just to managing dam levels, and the best way for us to do that was to be transparent about it. The National Department of Water and Sanitation was responsible for agricultural releases, and to cast light on the matter, we basically made sure that they couldn't let agriculture take more water than they're allowable, and to stick to the operating rules to manage the system as well as one can. That was the first leg of our strategy. I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to go quite quickly through some of the slides. Then, in managing water demand, we had a couple of, I think there are 4 slides on this. So the first one was to get our consumers to work with us. At the time, there was approximately 4 million people in the city of Cape Town, and trying to get the message through to each individual that they need to play a part as well. The utility can do a lot, but individual people can make a difference a lot sooner. If everybody every day just flushes the toilet a couple of times less, you immediately can save a lot of water. But for people to work with a municipality, there has to be trust. So we were very open and transparent, and we made a lot of data available to people later on in the drought. I think that in the past, engineers did their thing and didn't really bother to speak to people outside, and cities as well. But the whole world has changed, and with social media, with Google, everybody feels that they can be an expert. So it serves utilities well to put information out there. So we ran hosts of different campaigns, and we did it on the website, in personal meetings with civil society groups, etc., in the media, on radio, TV, wherever. We spent a fair amount of money on a communications campaign, but compared to what additional water resources cost, a communications campaign is actually really, really not an expensive thing. And to have a well-crafted, well-branded information campaign that is true and accurate and honest is really the only way to engender trust in society as we have it. Our second way to reduce our demand was through various levels of restrictions. When we went into the drought, we were on level 1, and we only had 2 more levels. We had a little bit of a shotgun approach at times, and we introduced no less than 7 levels of restrictions, and amongst those there were also a level 3B and a level 6B, and so we were a bit trigger happy on the restrictions, but when there is panic, this tends to happen, but they were generally really, really effective. We also introduced the tariff restrictions, which Alderman Nielsen spoke about, that people didn't quite understand so well, but when you are balancing, water services in Cape Town is not a profit-making entity, so it had to use all the revenue for the expenditure. Now, if you have to sell less water, you have to charge more for it. But people couldn't understand why they were being punished for using less and less water. So we eventually had a very steep tariff, so that even if you were a wealthy household and you could afford spending 5,000 Rand on your water bill, if you were using more than 30 litres or 30,000 litres a month, you probably had an underground leak. And then we were charging, I think it went up to 1,000 Rand a kilolitre, so people would notice if they had a leak. And so they would take action and fix their leaks and everything else. What we also did, what a lot of cities say that they can't do, because you can only approve your tariffs once a year at council, there is always ways and means around it. So we actually got the Minister of Finance to approve an in-year tariff increase, so that at the beginning of 2018, our tariffs went up by a hell of a lot. That was also when the day zero hit the media. So that was now on the public side, on the individual households. We communicated with them, so in good faith they would understand the problem and use less water. The second thing is that we charged them more and put out restrictions and enforced it as well, so that if you saw your neighbor watering their garden outside of time, you could report it to the city, and our inspectors would then go and check up on that. What we did at the city was that we increased our network management. We had already a very successful project in parts of the city to manage pressure, but we accelerated this, and we went around the city in all the areas where we could impose lower pressure, because that also reduces household leaks, wastage through that. And also in indigent households, we went through a process where we would go to indigent households that can't afford to fix their own leaks, and the city got council approval to go inside households and fix leaks. And at peak, the pressure management and leak detection program saved us 70 million litres a day, which is a significant volume of water. And then the point what this conference really speaks to was the flow restrictors. Towards the end of 2017, we had many conversations and meetings of how to reduce our demand, because we seemed to be stuck. We had reduced it by quite a lot, but we needed to force it down some more. And we realized that if magically we had a meter at every household, which we could control the household use, it would be really, really useful, because trying to convince people to flush the toilet less also took a lot of effort, and you can never reach everybody, and some people just won't care. But if we could control household use at every household, that would be great. Since 2007, the city had made a decision to install only water management devices at all households. So whether you were indigent or not, if you were just a middle-class household, we would install a device at your house, but we wouldn't set it. So it was like a water meter, but free flow. But at indigent households, these meters were set to only allow 350 litres a day, and then they shut off. In around September of 2017, we took the decision to install these at all households that were using too much water. So it was a very much accelerated program, which brought its own problems in back office and everything else. But you can see that we installed about 60,000 of these meters within 10 months. This served the purpose that if a household was using too much water, we didn't go and ask them first if they had 10 people in the household. We would go and install a water meter and set it, and they would then come to tell us or come to complain, and everybody did come and complain. And then we did adjust it if you had more people in your household. But it was also very embarrassing. I remember I had a friend who lived in Oranjezicht, and the city came and she had a nice, pavement level meter, and the next day she got home and it was one of these blue things that stood out on the pavement. So everybody knew that her family was a water waster. So they didn't like that. And to add insult to injury, we sent you a bill to pay for the installation as well. So, but it made sense, and it was really a useful thing because it was real. People could actually see this happening. We had problems. Our call center call volumes went through the roof with meter issues. And when people aren't used to it, they don't understand that once they use their daily limit, it switches off, and the next morning at 4 o'clock it switches on. If you've now left your kitchen tap open, when you wake up at 6 o'clock, all the water's gone for the day. And then you're very cross with the city, but people eventually learned. So being able to install flow restrictors is really, really a valuable thing. And then to augment supply, this slide really tries to point out, interesting graphics there, that building your way out of the drought is very expensive and it doesn't really work. What that top graph is showing is that we built 3 temporary desal plants with a combined volume of 16 million litres a day. So that's the 16 line, and you can see I think the scale is for 2 or 3 years, 2 years while they were all operating, and they never really quite managed to reach a combined volume of 16. So something like desal is not only expensive, but it's also a very finicky thing. So it's likely to produce less water than you want, and it is really, really an expensive thing. But you have to, with climate change, and we don't quite know just how quickly climate change is going to impact, if you can have a diversified supply source, then that's great. I see the city's dashboard still shows that they're not getting anything from groundwater, which I can't believe for all the money and the effort spent, and I know that the groundwater projects are successful, but it's also just more expensive to operate, so there are issues. This photo I took in October of 2020 when Theewaterskloof Dam was spilling, and it was just such an exciting day. And Cape Town got a certificate of excellence that I think you mentioned, that the International Water Association recognized us for achieving a 55% drop in demand without ever resorting to intermittent supply. And that is really something that just hasn't been done anywhere. I've now been working with Mandela Bay as well as Gauteng, and it doesn't matter how desperate things become, their demand just stubbornly refuses to drop. So we're working on that. But it really was an achievement in Cape Town. We have seen that many people have taken credit for this. You know, pressure management saved us, and Day Zero saved us, and the tariff increase saved us. It really was a combined thing. I would challenge the data of anybody who says that there was one silver bullet. It was a combined effort, and Cape Town worked together to make sure that we got our demand dropped by so low. But it was also, of course, rainfall. When you're dependent on rain-fed dams, it's not going to change overnight, and hopefully rain will continue falling in this neck of the woods and we don't turn into the Middle East. I don't think there is a quick risk of that, but who knows? Rain-fed dams and dam water is still the cheapest water, and I think that our reliance on it, even if it is augmented by other supplies, will continue for a while. So what's happening in the rest of the world? I think the main point I wanted to make by this slide is that water use efficiency has increased by 12% globally. In South Africa, unfortunately, the picture is not that rosy, and I'm not necessarily talking about Cape Town, but due to long-term underinvestment, declining services leads to declining revenues, which leads to inefficient and under-resourced municipalities. There's less money for maintenance and investment, and it's really a doom loop. It's pretty much the water business countrywide is following the same cycle as did Eskom, and we really need to arrest the decay and turn it around before it becomes more dire. The green drop and blue drop scores, it's only really Cape Town and Ekurhuleni that is looking okay in it, and the financial side as well. The other 6 metros are not in a good state. So when you run out of water, the response usually from the engineering side is mostly it's about water resources. Since I left the city even more, I've become aware that management of the whole thing, and the ring fencing of your water and sanitation services, and making sure that tariffs are cost reflective. Those management issues are so important, so that metering and billing isn't divorced from water resources. It makes sure that your whole water business is trained to go for efficiency, and not just consider the volume of water. And these are just the no drop and the non-revenue scores from the report issued late last year, and I can see you starts pacing, but this is my second last slide, so we are good. Alderman Nielsen mentioned the 190 litres per person a day. In South Africa, the average is about 218, and the international average is 173. Now, of course, gross includes all your losses in commercial and industrial use, so it's difficult to compare worldwide, but it's a very good measure within an area how much water people are using per person. And of course, one of the leading reasons is the number of leaks in our systems. So there's an urgent need for action. On the right, it's really what I think the public sector utilities need to do. Currently, they are not investing sufficient money in their existing assets or building new assets. There is very low trust in the system, and they need to become financially and technically more sustainable. And smart metering and sound data management have the potential to significantly contribute to sustainability. So my challenge is really in the green block, and I'm sorry, that is very far away, and I can't read what's on the screen there. But, you know, being on the leading edge rather than on the bleeding edge, I sometimes felt like we were on that with meters. A conference like this brings together so many people within the industry, and I'm really keen to learn and to see just how metering has advanced. Because we need metering that is reliable to engender trust with our customers. It has to be affordable to install and to maintain. We don't want to replace a meter every year or so. It must meet all the requirements, of course, local content and SABS approval or SANS. It must be available. You don't want to procure something and it's not available for the next few years. And a very big problem all around the country is vandalism and theft. And as water becomes more expensive, there is more water theft and bypassing of meters as well. So I'm really hoping to see that all of these have developed since I left the city of Cape Town, and that we are now in a better position to move forward in our municipalities for water metering to really make a difference to the financial sustainability and managing our demand in all cities. And that's me. Thank you.